Come on, Annie. Let's go to the movies.
This is the Cinereelists, episode 483. My name is Kyle.
My name is James.
And my name is Zach.
And we're here to talk about movies, movie lists, and movie obsession for the next hour or so. How's it going, guys?
It's going great, man.
Pretty good.
We're back on the Zoom.
We are.
We are.
Yeah.
We got spoiled being in person last week.
Man, last week, I had so much fun recording that episode.
Yeah, it was a good time.
That was a good time. I haven't actually went back. I don't normally do this, but I actually listened to last week's episode, and it was great.
You re-experienced it? I'm surprised you didn't watch it on YouTube. You didn't watch the YouTube version?
I did not watch the YouTube version, though if you are going to watch an episode on YouTube, last week's is the one to watch.
For sure. Yeah. There's lots of action that's not spoken.
No.
In the episode.
I have watched Zach's Lion King video way too many times, though.
Sure.
Good.
Yeah.
I got a decent reaction on Instagram too. Your videos. I noticed.
Yeah, we got some likes, some views, some comments. It was
Yeah. You guys should just keep making random scene recreations. That way we can boost our IG numbers.
You know, our acting needs to be shared with the world.
For sure.
Or at least the 700 people that follow us.
It's what the world needs right now. For sure.
Is more of Zach and I recreating emotional movie scenes.
All right. You know, what I was kind of hoping for that one is one of you guys would do a scene that's like very not emotional, but just do it in an emotional way. Because I would have taken that too.
I almost did a scene from Inside Out that just had all 5 emotions.
Sure. Oh yeah.
I was like, well, it's
Oh.
got 5 emotions. Yours only has 1 emotion.
That would have been most emotional for sure.
For sure.
Especially if you had
guaranteed
worn
winner.
like a different color shirt for each emotion and just edited it all together.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that would have been great.
I just didn't know it was a competition.
Well, if we ever play it again, now you know.
But I gotta admit, making the video with you, Zach, was fun, even though we were competing against each other.
Good times.
Yeah. All right. Enough about last week. But if you haven't listened to last week, you should do that. It was a good one for sure. Let's talk about this week. Like we mentioned, there's a video version of this podcast. You should check it out. It's on YouTube, youtube.com. Search Cinereelists, REEL with an S on the end. And you'll see the YouTube channel there. Every episode for the last, I don't know, dozen, maybe more than that. Yeah, have been posted on YouTube, and there we are, just chatting away, just like you're hearing us right now. You can watch us talk away on YouTube if that's your thing. You can also support the podcast at patreon.com/Cinereelists. Support the podcast, get extra after show audio amongst other Cinereelists swag. You also could and should leave us an Apple Podcast review. So if you listen on Apple Podcasts, just pop up the app, navigate to the Cinereelists podcast, scroll all the way down to the bottom and click write a review or leave a review or whatever it says at the bottom. Click that, leave us a review, at least a star ranking, 5 stars only. But if you're so inclined, you could also leave a text review, and whatever you leave there, we're going to read on the podcast. So just so you know, if you'd like for us to discuss your review on the podcast, just leave it in text on top of the 5-star rating you will inevitably give us. And I think that's it for housekeeping.
You know, Apple Podcasts updated the app, and it's even easier to leave the review now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, instead of having to scroll through hundreds of episodes to get to the bottom, they only show like the last 12.
Nice.
So it's a very quick scroll. It's just a flick of the thumb and you're there.
So it used to show you every episode we've ever posted?
It used to show like a good 100.
Okay.
before it got to the show more and you got to the bottom. Now it's like a
Sure.
dozen. So you can easily get to that bottom to write that review. So no excuses.
Yeah. I agree. No excuses. Is nobody has a check-in, right? Except for me.
You
I
mentioned
have
a
a check-in.
check-in.
I have a check-in. My check-in is not movie related, but it's frustration related. So I live in a condo, right? With like other people live around me. There's a bunch of other units in this condo area. There's
Okay.
probably in my building, which are like multiple buildings attached together, there's probably 22 units, I think, in just like my section of the building. And then there's 3 sections of those 22. There's a whole nother neighborhood that's about our size. So that's like 150. And then you double that for all the condo units that are in the back of the neighborhood. So there's, I would guess, somewhere around 350 to 500 units. Okay.
This
In my
seems like a
neighborhood.
math problem you're trying to trick me into. Like if
It's
my
not a
condo
math
unit is
problem.
22 and there's 3 buildings and then
Just
there's
think
another one.
Just think somewhere between 350 and 500 units. And then there's like, I live alone, but not everybody does. So there's probably 1,000 people living in my neighborhood, maybe more because people have kids and multi-generational households. So, like every other American, we get the mail, right? From the USPS. They deliver the mail directly to the door. And this has worked like a charm for as long as I've owned this condo, since 2005. It's like nor rain, nor sleet, nor snow, the mailman delivers. I don't remember the phrase. What's the phrase?
You need to rewatch The Postman.
Oh, is it in that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
They take it very seriously. Neither
Well-
snow, nor rain, nor heat, nor gloom of night stay these couriers from the swift completion of their appointed rounds.
All right.
Can we
That-
argue gloom of night? Have you gotten your mail like at
At night?
10, 11 o'clock?
Yeah. They don't deliver at night. They wait till the
I
next
don't
day.
think. Yeah. Yes.
I'm just saying
Sure.
they could update their code.
So about a week ago, I noticed that I hadn't gotten any mail in like a week, even though I get an email saying like what letters are coming in the mail. And yet every time I went to the mailbox, no mail
You hadn't
Uh,
gotten mail in a week.
in a week. Yeah. So I thought
That's a long time.
I thought that was weird, but I didn't really question it because I just assumed like, Trump and the mail system's been screwed up since last year between Trump and the pandemic and stuff like that. And so, and there was nothing in there that I had to have, so it'll show up eventually. And then I got a notice on my door from the association that the post office is no longer delivering mail to my entire neighborhood.
What?
Wait, they're just stopping?
And they haven't for 2 weeks.
What does that mean?
Yeah,
It's
where's your
been
mail going?
2 weeks. It's been 2 weeks since they delivered the mail, and they're not delivering it to my neighborhood any longer.
So where does the mail
Because-
go?
It's sitting at the post office, not the close post office, a different post office that's farther away that I now have to drive to every time I want to get my mail because somebody in my neighborhood assaulted the mailman.
Oh,
What?
I thought this was like a budget cut or something.
No,
Someone
somebody in my
assaulted
neighborhood
the mailman.
assaulted the mailman, and then I found out it's somebody 4 doors down from me.
Isn't that a federal crime?
Yeah. Not only assaulted him, but at the end of the assault, told him, "I know what you look like, and I'm gonna get you," or something like that. Like made a threat that like this was not over. In the future, he was
Wow.
going to do something to this mailman.
Do you have any idea what precipitated to lead to this assault?
Yes, his girlfriend was walking her dog without the leash, and this little dog, which is harmless, will bark at you. And so, if you're a mailman, you don't want little dogs or big dogs like running up to you and barking at you. You don't know what's going to happen. And so, from what I understand, the mailman did not react well. Or maybe he did, and the boyfriend reacted way worse than he did. I don't know the details, but that's what started it. And then the boyfriend got involved, and there was some kind of altercation. And so now, until further notice, that many people have to drive to the post office.
Like, this is an inconvenience for you, but imagine people who get prescriptions and like really important things through the mail.
Right. I mean, I get checks from clients through the mail.
Yeah.
So I get important things through the mail too. They might not be like prescriptions, like I need them right now, but the mail is still important to me for sure.
Right,
and I don't want to have to drive.
You have the
15
ability
minutes
to
each
drive
direction.
to get it, though.
Sure. Yeah,
Wow.
no, I agree. Isn't
James,
it,
class action lawsuit against the guy that assaulted the mailman.
Well, that's the thing. I'm on the board here in my building, and we're just trying to figure out how to get them out of here because I don't think we're going to get the post office to come back until we can say that they're out. They're renters.
They're they're renters. Kick them out.
So now
That's
we're like,
not against the HOA to assault the postman.
No, you cannot assault Kevin Costner when he comes by.
There was no police report done or anything like that. Like the mailman didn't call the police and like file a report or anything. He just went back to the, wherever the postmen meet up.
Can't they send a
and
different?
said I'm not going back there.
They can't send a different postal carrier or give them a mask.
To me, that seems like the obvious answer is you just trade routes with somebody else and get a brand new postman. But from what I understand, the union rules or something like that. From what I understand, postmen stick together. And so if one is assaulted, even if there's an easy solution, what they want is that person gone.
Solidarity.
Right. But how do we evict them? Like, there's nothing on paper that they did that we can evict for as the HOA.
Sounds like you need to get yourself assaulted. Take one for the condo. Think of the thousands of people that will thank you for getting them kicked out.
It has crossed my mind that I should just go to the door and knock on it and be confrontational. Should I do that? And just be like, look, you need to go to the post office and talk to the guy and apologize because we're going to find a way to evict you because if we're getting our mail back one way or another. There's no way 500 to 1,000 people are going to go month after month after month not getting mail because you won't go apologize or won't leave. One or the other is going to happen, right? It has to.
I don't know if you personally should go to the door. maybe like the condo association can draft a letter, explain the situation.
What if I got like 30 of my neighbors and we all showed up at the door and was like, knock, knock, knock.
Are these like
we could get pitchforks and torches and just be like, come on out.
You're sure you can't evict this guy for that? Like, there's nothing in the rules of conduct or something?
I mean, this story's long enough. I could go through the details of like how we might be able to get it done, but it's definitely a bunch of long shots. The best avenue that we're currently pursuing right now is the guy or the person, I don't know if it's a guy, whoever owns that condo who rents it to these people, we're sending threatening letters via a lawyer.
Oh, that's the way.
That basically say you need to get rid of these people one way or another. And we're offering to pay the rent between when the person leaves and when they get a new renter.
Oh, that's a no-brainer then.
Yes.
Within a timeline.
Because you'll pay on time.
Circumvent the renter, go right to the owner.
Yeah. But these people have been here for 6 years renting.
Well,
and they're, other than this, perfectly fine renters.
I mean, if they're threatening postal carriers, they're probably not perfectly fine if you dig a little deeper.
I'm just saying, as far as everybody else in the neighborhood was concerned, this was shocking that this happened because they don't get into altercations with other neighbors. Anyway, this was a movie related, except I sell Blu-rays. And I used to sit because my couch is relatively near where we get our mail. And I would sit there and work, and then I'd hear the mailman show up, and then I'd just give him my Blu-rays that I sold, and then I wouldn't have to go to the post office. Can't do that anymore.
So you knew the mailman.
Oh, yeah. That's the other thing. Who assaults a mailman? Like what?
I grew up in the 90s. I know not to mess with postal workers.
It's not even a matter of messing with them. Like, who interacts with them enough to need to have a problem with them? I can't imagine.
Do we know the nature of the assault? Because assault can just be verbal.
I think it was a shove, from what I understand.
Okay, so there was physical contact.
There was physical contact, but it wasn't like fists flying or anything like that. It was a lot of yelling and getting in people's faces and a shove, from what the rumor mill has said.
Oh, and you know those condos and the rumors.
Yeah, the rumor mill is alive and well here in Lakeview condominiums, for sure.
Wow, I'm really starting to narrow down where you live, James. This is great.
Fine.
James, you need to keep us up to date on the progress of the mail saga.
Okay, I will. I'll let you know the day I have mail again. I'll let you know.
You know, this seems like premium Instagram content right there.
We should do a letter writing campaign.
Everyone write James a letter.
To James.
And then once he receives them all, he can read them.
We can't store these anymore. There's too many. It's like Miracle on 34th Street.
Or like Mr. Smith Goes to Washington.
Sure.
Well, it's
I can
not
see
like
that
that
working.
No, doesn't he read letters?
Does he?
Yeah. Yes, that's what he does. Like he filibusters by reading letters on the Senate floor. You've seen this.
Yeah, there are letters in that movie. I don't think it's like there's so many letters that like they don't know what to do with them.
No, but he brings so many letters so he can read them on the Senate floor.
I thought he's like reading Abraham Lincoln speeches.
I'm just trying to tie this back to movies. James took us on a tangent. I'm really trying to rope it back in.
I feel like trying to overwhelm the post office with letters is a fool's errand.
Because they're already overwhelmed.
They know exactly what to do with letters of all things to try to overwhelm them with. All right. Transition into In the Height. I don't know how to transition into that. We saw a movie.
That was
I'm looking at a picture. I'm looking at a picture of Mr. Smith just buried in letters on the floor of the Senate.
Is it really? So there are letters, right?
Oh, there's so many.
Yeah,
There's just bags and bags of them.
All right, we saw a movie this week. We're going to talk about it. It's a musical. It's in theaters and on HBO Max right now. The movie is called In the Heights, and here's a clip.
Maybe you're right, Sonny. Calling the coroners. Maybe we're powerless, a corner full of foreigners. Maybe this neighborhood's changing forever. Maybe tonight is our last night together. However, how do you want to face it? Do you want to waste it when the end is so close you can taste it? Y'all could cry with your head in the sand. I'ma fly this flag that I got in my hand. Can we raise our voice tonight? Can we make a little noise tonight?
That was In the Heights, a 2021 American musical drama directed by John M. Chu, starring Anthony Ramos, Corey Hawkins, Leslie Grace, Melissa Barrera, Olga Merediz, I think is how you say that, Daphne Rubin Vega, Gregory Diaz IV, and Jimmy Smits, amongst others. The official IMDb plot synopsis for In the Heights is a film version of the Broadway musical in which Uznavi, a sympathetic New York bodega owner, saves every penny every day as he imagines and sings about a better life. I don't like that description. I mean, was saves every penny every day really like a big part of the plot on this?
You know, I actually found this plot to be a little hazy at times.
Right, but it definitely wasn't focused on him saving every penny.
Correct. Yeah, there wasn't like a song.
I don't even remember them saying that in the movie.
No, No, he definitely was trying to use money to achieve a goal, but that just kind of happened.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't about Uznavi, like, frantically searching the internet for life hacks to save money to accomplish his dream.
No.
That's true. That's true, James.
I mean, there's literally no mention of him saving money.
We never see him go to the bank. He never checks his balance on his phone.
Okay. Duly noted, James. I have you on the record.
This is what I want the whole review to be about. We're
Yeah.
just going to
Just
review the plot
line by
synopsis.
line
How
by
much
line.
do we think Uznavi had in savings? Go.
All right. So In the Heights is a Lin-Manuel Miranda musical. I believe it's the one that he wrote and produced and starred in before Hamilton.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And
Tony Award winning.
Yeah. In the Heights was a moderate hit, right? A moderate Broadway hit. And then Hamilton, of course, is like a whole nother beast as far as a success level. But because Hamilton was so successful, In the Heights kind of rebirthed a little bit off the back of that, including interest in a movie version. And so they shot and produced a movie version that should have been released in 2020, but instead was pushed back a full year to 2021. Yes, Kyle.
I think In the Heights won 3 Tonys.
It won Best Musical.
Yeah.
And this movie was actually first in development in 2006. And kind of went dark for a while, and then on the success of Hamilton was revived, and now we have what we have.
Mm-hmm. So In the Heights, who wants to go first? I
I want
can.
to hear from Zach. Or go. Yeah, James, go ahead. Let's hear from you.
Let's take a vote. Zach or James?
I'm just James is the musical guy, so I want to hear from him.
I'm the musical guy. I am not the musical guy.
You love musicals.
You guys don't know this, but before we start recording, James has to do like at least a 4-minute performance to warm his voice up.
I do.
Yeah.
Yep.
And he's always like, I am the modern man. And I'm like, come on, James, let's just go on.
I do scales. So In the Heights is actually a movie I was looking forward to. Like when we do hangover episodes every year, this one made the list 2 years in a row because it took that long to come out. Between year 1 and year 2, it dropped 2 slots, but it stayed in my top 10 most anticipated. And I think that's because 5 years ago, I found a musical I really loved. I found out it was possible to really love a modern musical, like not just like one, but like to really love a modern musical. And so I've been chasing that ever since. And this based on the trailer was the closest I had seen to something resembling that movie that I love, that modern musical that I love. And so I was very interested in the Heights and excited to get to see it. I kind of wish I had seen it on a big screen. Just because I think maybe dance numbers translate differently when it's just like ginormous with tons of people on the screen. But alas, I saw it on HBO Max like most people did, it seems, because it didn't do very well in the box office. But as far as the movie itself, it's all right. I didn't love it, to be honest. I didn't hate it. I thought it was a little long, like probably a good half an hour to 40 minutes too long. And I understood everything that was going on. I'm just not quite sure I fully cared. Like, especially there were a couple characters that came in and out that I thought had very little motivation to them. And I think maybe culturally they have more significance than I would appreciate. Specifically the grandmother character. Like, I didn't fully understand why that character was there other than from a cultural perspective. Like a storyline perspective, it did nothing for me. Although the singer and her one performance did a good job. And I found the lead charming and the rest of everybody kind of dull. Like the lead and his sidekick were the most interesting thing about the movie for me. Like those performances were. And the pool scene was cool, but I mean, you're talking like 10 minutes of this 2 hours plus musical. So it was kind of brutal. There wasn't enough going on, or what? It's not necessarily that there needed to be more going on. It's just the translation of what was going on was just kind of like, all right, I really want to care about this. And even going into it with that attitude, I couldn't get there. So what did you guys think about it?
Kyle?
Well, I had a little different reaction than you, James. I did enjoy this movie. It was definitely a fun watch. When I see a musical that is transferred to the big screen or, to a movie, I kind of look for two things. And the first is when you get those big numbers with the cast of hundreds and all the choreography, are you really using that full space for it? And I thought this movie did that really well. The three big numbers I remember are the opening song where you have young people dancing in the street. Obviously the pool scene was really cool. And then the carnival dance. I really enjoyed that also. But then also when you have the smaller songs, either if it's just a one person singing or if it's a duet, what are they doing with that? And do you remember there was one where the Benny character was like he was singing and he was gesturing and that they were kind of animating his gestures?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool. And then when he and Nina were kind of doing their farewell song and dancing on the side of the building, I thought that was another creative use. I've not seen the original musical, so I'm not sure how these are choreographed, on the stage. But the fact that they kind of had this heightened sense of them dancing on the side of the building was pretty cool. I do agree that the characters were a bit all over the place for me. Like some, I was really invested in their story, and others, like Benny and Nina, for example, and maybe it's just because a lot of their story was cut, I didn't find as much to latch onto with them. And right, same with the grandmother. Like I understood why she was there. I did not like her final song. I just didn't think it was I think she performed it well, but I don't think it was a very well written song. Like it was hard to, I don't know. It was hard for me to just follow it musically. So it seemed clunky or something along those lines. And I think if I was to have a criticism of this musical is, for the most part, I didn't find the songs very memorable. Like if you asked me to, hum one back to you, I could probably hum the main theme, the kind of the opening number, but the rest of them did not stick with me. So like maybe visually they were kind of cool, but musically they seemed like more or less standard Broadway songs. Obviously, some of them were using some more Latin instrument influence, which was kind of cool to bring that in. But with the exception of a couple songs, this definitely did not have like the creativity musically that you had in Hamilton. And I think that's one reason why Hamilton blew up like it did, because it was such a different take on a traditional format. What about you, Zach?
Any guesses?
I think you liked this a lot.
You think I liked it a lot, James?
I think you did not like it a lot.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't like it that much.
Oh.
I kind of feel bad for not liking it.
Right,
like
me
I should
too.
like it, I guess. Yeah, I feel like maybe I missed the boat somehow. Like I was supposed to like it better. I had 2.5 hours to fall in love with it.
Mm-hmm.
Which is a long time. I saw that runtime and I was like, really? It felt like it just never ended. Like the first time I paused it to go like get another drink, an hour had passed and there was still an hour and a half left. And I was like, oh, okay. Here's what I appreciate about it. I love the exuberance of the movie. It's full of life and so many people living life and having these full lives and this community that's really vibrant. Like I really when I go to a musical, I do want exuberance, right? I want everyone to be given 100%. And it did that. That was awesome. And I have never been to Washington Heights. I have a feeling that this is like there's a lot to like love about this if you're from there. You know, like I think there's actually is some controversy that it like ignores like community groups that are in the neighborhood, but I think it's kind of like a love letter to like Washington Heights in a way. And I'm not a huge fan of love letters to places in movies. You know, like when people have a very personal connection to a location and they write this love letter to it in a movie form. If I don't have that that connection, it's like a nostalgia that I just am not on the same wavelength of. You were talking about memorable music. I can't hum a single note from this musical. I know one song was about the price of the lottery ticket.
Right.
That's the only thing that stood out to me. But just because it felt derivative from Rent, you know, like to have a song about a number. I liked the main character. I thought he was super charismatic. He reminded me of a roommate I had in college. So I liked that. I actually liked the grandma better than both of you. I thought her scene, her like musical number by herself was, I thought, really creatively done from an art direction standpoint. But yeah, I never switched gears into enjoying what I was watching. It was more just kind of like I was watching it, but I was never really that invested. I like what they did with the last like 5 minutes. I thought that was cool. That scene you talked about where they're on the side of the building, Spider-Man style.
Yeah.
I thought was pretty ham-fistedly done. I thought it could have been, I don't know. It didn't look real and it didn't take full advantage. I wanted like, you know, something from like Swing Time, you know, like something with Fred Astaire where it's like really playing with it,
like
and this
really
one just felt very CG.
Yeah,
and this one just felt very CG and kind of they had the concept, but like not the best execution of it. And some of the casting I felt like was just out of place. Like the main character. Well, the main character, I forget his name. He was in love with this girl, right?
Yeah, Uznavi's his name.
Yes, and what was the girl's name?
Vanessa.
She honestly seems very out of place.
Really?
Just because she was like, I don't know, way more attractive than anyone else in the cast. Like it just seemed odd.
I didn't fully understand why he, other than her being attractive, they didn't really give any reason why, like, he would be attracted to her, other than she's attractive.
It was his like high school crush.
Well, then sing a song about her being his high school crush.
Yeah, I
right?
mean,
like give us reasons. I don't feel like I got enough reason to be like, oh, beyond the fact that she's pretty. There's reasons why somebody would be so smitten with this person.
I think one challenge of adapting a musical into a movie is musicals are usually 3-4 hours long. And you could make a 3-4 hour movie and include every single song and every single scene, but you're going to be hard pressed to get people to go to a theater to sit through that. So you obviously have to cut songs and take some shortcuts narratively. And I do wonder if maybe there were more songs between them to explain their relationship. I felt the same way with the Nina Benny relationship. Like her story for Nina was really fleshed out, but then her relationship with Benny was mentioned 2 or 3 times. And they get this big send-off, but it didn't feel like they earned it. And maybe there was something missing that was in the original Broadway.
Yeah, and Benny's part of the story is like almost non-existent. Like he exists to revolve around whatever's going on in her life for the most part.
Yeah, he kind of gets one song about himself, and that's it.
Yeah. The stuff with the grandma, too, is just kind of like... by the time they gave her a song to kind of like give you a real reason for her to be there, because so far it's just been people talking about her as kind of like the grandma of the block or of the neighborhood. by the time you actually get words from her mouth or like her perspective on being that person, like it's over. The movie's over at that point. And it's kind of like, well, you've been telling us all about this, and then now it's the big moment, and then it's over, and it's like there's no more to chew on after that. It just felt like a backwards way to try to get you to care about somebody. It didn't work for me. But again, I don't live in a world where grandmas can be the grandma of the block or the area of the city, right? Like that's just not a world I don't live in a city. My neighbors beat up the postman. They don't, make each other.
Maybe if you did have a grandma of your condo complex, you'd be getting mail right now.
Yeah, maybe.
I kind of consider James the grandma of the podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. And I kind of felt like that with most of the characters. It's just like, I understand the core of like the girl who was going to Stanford but felt out of place. Like I understand the drama behind that and like how some people relate to that, and it's written so that those people will relate to it. And I related to it in the most superficial of way because I don't have those challenges or haven't had those challenges in my life. And so I'm just left with, okay. It feels like there's more universal topics here that could have been explored more intentionally in a tighter, more entertaining package that like more than the people who have those experiences.
I don't know. I think this is more about the Latino American experience. And like, so they're trying to keep it focused on that.
I think for me, I appreciated that about it because it was a glimpse into a world that I'm not a part of. But like,
was it an interesting glimpse into that world though?
I wasn't that interested. I wasn't that interested. No. With that particular storyline where she didn't want to go to Stanford anymore. Was it Stanford?
It was Stanford. Yeah.
And the dad did. I was very uninvested in a plot line where the two of them are making major life moves for the other one without communicating about it. You know, it's like a monkey paw situation.
Yeah.
And it's like, no. Like, don't do this fixable thing without first discussing it with someone, because like you can't go back from this if there's a misunderstanding, you know? And yeah. So for me, that was the part that I couldn't hook into that plot line because you guys need to actually have a conversation where you listen to each other and come up with a joint plan.
Or this is a musical. Let's sing about it.
Yeah.
Like that's a perfect two-hander right there of them going back and forth. But they talk about it. They don't use their talents.
I also didn't love just how much singing there was.
Well, so James, this is a musical.
No, I get it. And this is, I'm sure we'll get into this when we go into our top 10 musicals, but there's definitely like a balance for me that is a sweet spot. And this one doesn't have a whole lot of non-singing in it.
Wait till you see Umbrellas of Cherbourg.
I was disappointed once they started singing because of how similar in style it was to Hamilton.
Mm-hmm.
It made me feel like Lin-Manuel didn't have the range that I thought he had, because so many of the songs had very similar moments and sounds to Hamilton songs. And I wanted it to just kind of be its own separate little thing. And it was just like, oh, this feels a lot like Hamilton.
I have to disagree a little bit there. I think some of the songs definitely had that rap singing style that we have from Hamilton. But I thought a lot of the songs just sounded like traditional musical songs that you could expect from a Broadway musical of this era. Whereas Hamilton takes the idea of, like we can rap a musical, but doesn't just use the same style of rapping and lyrics for every single song. Like in Hamilton, he's really developing that idea and exploring different corners of hip hop, while also using some more traditional styles and then going kind of weird with other things like the King George. This had nothing like the King George, where it's so different and so memorable that it just takes you to a different place. All these kind of felt more or less the same, with a couple exceptions.
Yep. So that's what I thought. I don't know. I wanted to like it more. I feel bad for not liking it more, but it is what it is.
Would you have enjoyed it more if you saw it in the theater?
Maybe if the crowd was super into it or something, I'd feel like I'm a part of something. But I don't know. I don't think so.
Did you guys catch the end credits scene?
No. I shut it off as fast as I could.
There was a small end credits scene. It's not like it's say up a sequel or anything. Nick Fury didn't show up, but
is it spoiler heavy, or can you just tell us what it is?
There's one more scene between the Lin-Manuel Shea Vice character and the Mr. Softy character.
Oh, you know what? That played, and I thought the movie restarted. So I turned it off because I thought it restarted for somehow.
No, that was a little moment.
Sure. I liked Lin-Manuel's character.
Because he's like in it for 1.5 songs.
Exactly, yeah. I got just enough about him to care enough to justify his screen time. Cool. But I will say it looked great. Like, it was shot in such a consistent visual tone, which I think for something that has interiors and exteriors, day and night, blackouts and all that kind of stuff is very tricky to do in a way that isn't feel artificial. You know, like Steven Spielberg's like DP that he's been using for the past 15 years has totally not figured this out, right? So like all of his visual tone looks are so artificial looking. I can't stand it. But this one, it just looked really great. Every scene, the color tone looked awesome. And the lighting, it just felt very of a piece the entire movie. And I really appreciated the look of it. It was very easy to look at and watch. It just, I wasn't invested in the characters, and it was really long. And none of the songs really stood out to me as something that's like, oh, I got to look up this song and listen to the soundtrack. I just didn't feel that. And a lot of times with musicals, I feel that.
Yeah, you want to jump back in and revisit those songs.
Yes.
Yeah, $96,000, I think, is the only one that like I would ever listen to again. And I would probably just listen to it like in the context of watching that scene again, just because the execution of that scene was probably my favorite. There's other like visual flourishes. In the opening number, there's a shot where he's looking out the window and you can like see the dancers in the reflection. And that's a pretty long shot. And I thought that was something they didn't have to do. Whenever they would cut to traditional movie musical stuff, I just found most of it less interesting than when they were trying to do interesting things that you couldn't necessarily do on a stage, or wouldn't do necessarily on a stage. Like the last scene, maybe it's not the very last scene, but the scene, the blackout when everybody doesn't want to, something's happened and the whole neighborhood's depressed. And
the Carnival song.
It's hot out. Yeah, the Carnival song. That seems like very traditional movie musical. And I was just like, one, felt weird to follow the scene that came before it with that, even though they do kind of try to justify it. But two, the scene before that had a good performance in it, and it was interestingly shot, right? They had like done all kinds of things that you couldn't do on a stage. And then they go to the Carnival scene and it's like, oh, we're back to West Side Story again.
Right. It's shot in a small town square, like the size of a Broadway stage.
Right. With nothing too surprising in it from a visual perspective. So again, I didn't hate it. I wish it was shorter. And yeah, I mean, I've watched Geely. I hated that. I literally hated it as I watched it.
Is that a musical?
It's not Geely. Yeah, Gigle. I think that's how you say
Yeah,
it.
Geely. Yeah.
Yeah. There's been musicals that I hated, and this isn't one of them. But it didn't meet my expectation, which was pretty high. Like I said, 2 years in a row, top 10 most anticipated of the year. Didn't quite get there for me. Anything else for In the Heights?
Were those the Joker stairs?
When?
When Vanessa's it's at night, she's walking down a staircase, and that's when she gets she finds the spray paint and kind of gets inspired, and it looked a lot like the stairs from Joker, which I know is in New York City, but I just don't know if that's the same neighborhood or not, or if it's even the same staircase.
I don't think they shot this at locations.
You think this is a set?
Yeah, I think you could shoot this, as a set or in a backlot street set type of thing.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's what they did, but I wouldn't be shocked if that's what they did.
I think they are the Joker
You think they
stairs. I do.
I'll look it up.
They're both in the Bronx, right?
No, Washington Heights is Manhattan.
Oh, it is?
It's incredibly northern part of Manhattan.
North Manhattan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the Joker stairs are in the Bronx.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Let's star rate In the Heights. I'll give it a 3.
2.5.
I'm going to go 3.5. I definitely enjoyed this more than both of you.
A 2.5, a 3, and a 3.5 for In the Heights. We decided we're going to do top 10 musicals to accompany this modern musical. This was any type of musical, though. It didn't have to be modern musicals. Just any musical that you have seen qualifies for this list. Now, there was some pre-recording discussion, text discussion on what qualifies as a musical, but I think we all kind of decided that it's okay if we all use our own definitions. So
yeah, I'd be really curious to hear each one of us give our definition of what qualified for this list.
Oh yeah,
sure. Who wants to go first on top 10 musicals?
I'll go first.
Okay.
Oh, Zach, you want to go first?
I do want to go first.
Please.
Okay, so my 10, I really wanted to make a list of traditional musicals. So these are all musicals where they will randomly start singing and dancing. So it's a world that we don't live in where people break out into song. I didn't include movies where, they're musicians and so they are constantly playing together or doing gigs together or that kind of thing. Because where those are movies that have a lot of music, I don't consider those traditional musicals. I did make that list though for fun. So we can do that on Patreon if you want. I could just kind of rattle off my diegetic musicals. But these are my traditional musicals. And I would say I'm a fan of this genre. I like musicals. I think it's a very Hollywood genre. It's when you talk about someone who's like a triple threat, right? They sing and dance and act, and it's like it's just that it's a talent when you can just do it all. And I think it's these movies tend to be happier movies, and I like happy movies. So, anyways, my number 10 is from 1964, and it's already been mentioned on the show, The Umbrellas of Cherbourg.
Oh. Yeah.
And this is a Jacques Demy movie. And if you haven't seen this, it is a very unique film. The two things that really stand out to it for me are, one, it is 100% sung. So there is no talking in this film. It is all sung. Now, there's not necessarily, it's not all songs. Sometimes they just sing their dialogue in kind of melodic ways. I think that's called recitative, but I'm not the music guy, so we'll let
recitative.
Recitative?
Like reciting. Yeah.
Oh, okay, gotcha. So it's really kind of hypnotic. in a way. And it's beautiful to listen to. But then the other thing is it's in this very rich Technicolor. And so it is, and they really lean into that. And it is just unlike any other movie to watch. The color palette is really a star of the movie. And I find it just a wonderful combination that's totally enchanting. And so it's kind of a simple story of a mom and her daughter, and she is in love with someone, and she's young and he's at war and all that kind of stuff. But it is just a very charming movie and really well executed, and it's very musical forward, I would say. But yeah, The Umbrellas of Cherbourg from 1964 is my number 10.
Great pick.
Thank you.
My number 10 is Cabaret from 1972. It's directed by Bob Fosse and stars Liza Minnelli and Michael York. And this is a story. It takes place in a cabaret, in a club in pre-World War II Berlin. And it's about Liza Minnelli, who plays Sally Bowles. She's a kind of a singer and a kind of an up-and-coming star. Then Michael York is, if I remember correctly, he's a patron who kind of falls for her and is, they kind of get involved romantically. This is a movie that I have not seen since high school, but these songs have stuck with me. It's actually a movie I really want to revisit. I didn't have time for this one, but I just remember this has incredibly memorable songs. And it also has one of my favorite kinds of characters, and that's the charismatic MC. And this movie literally has an MC who just commands the stage. And whenever I see someone who has that kind of presence, whether it be in film or in person or like in a live action performance or a lead singer, I'm just always in awe of people who can command that attention from an audience. And I can't remember his name, but the guy who plays the MC in Cabaret commands that attention. He's a great character. Zach, I had the same definition of you. I chose traditional musicals. These have to be movies where people break out into song and dance in a time when you normally would not break out into song and dance, right? So musicals are inherently heightened, and they're using song to most of the time express some sort of emotion. I also made a conscious effort to not include Disney films, like Disney animated, just because.
Agreed.
They're musicals. They fit all the criteria, but I like so many of those also that with this list would have been half Disney, and I wanted to talk about other movies. So I left those off on purpose, not because I don't like them, but I just didn't want to talk about Aladdin for the umpteenth time.
Yeah, agreed.
I think in general we all share the same criteria. I left off all animated, and mine aren't ranked by how much of a musical they are, but definitely that was taken into account. Like if it didn't feel like a musical first, it was left off the list. Low enough to fall off. Essentially, the top 10. In fact, I submit that we change the title of the list right now. Top 10 live action musicals. That way, it's not a list of our favorite musicals, because then Disney movies would be in there.
Great.
Right?
Yeah. One of mine has animated elements, but it's overall live action film.
Sure.
Mary Poppins.
What? No.
I love how you leave off Disney like animated and then have a movie where like Disney animated.
I know. Mary Poppins is Disney, but
yeah, that's awesome.
I love it. We'll get to it.
My number 10 also has animated elements to it. It's from 1986, and it's Little Shop of Horrors. Has stop motion animation in it. Love this movie. I mean,
I've never seen it.
You've never seen Little Shop of Horrors?
I know.
I think you'd get a kick out of it for sure. I'm not sure it'll crack your top 400, but it's definitely worth a
which
watch.
ending did you watch?
I saw the alternate ending, the one and only time I've seen it. But from what I understand, that's the good one compared to the theater release one. Directed by Frank Oz, so that's fun.
Oh yeah,
and stars Rick Moranis, Steve Martin's in it, James Belushi, John Candy, Bill Murray's in it. This is why you should watch it. Zach and Kyle. There's just like a lot of
Oh,
people.
I want to watch it.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that you like in it. Have you seen it, Kyle? I don't remember. You
Yeah,
said
I
that.
watched it in high school. I don't remember it all. Zach, are you sure you didn't watch it in high school also?
I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Do you think we watched it together? And
I think we took a class that watched it.
what class?
Language arts.
We wouldn't watch that in language arts.
Yeah.
It's not language arts appropriate.
We watched Cabaret.
Right?
We watched Cabaret in language arts.
Yeah, but that's like a war film. This one is like, it's pretty inappropriate, isn't it, James?
I don't know. Yeah, go ahead, James.
It has its moments for sure. I mean, how old were you?
Is this the kind of movie you would watch in a high school class?
I think you could watch a version of this. There's no nudity in it.
But would you?
There's some suggestiveness, but I mean, we watched like West Side Story in high school, and there's a couple things in that movie that you wouldn't show to a.
We watched
class
Romeo
today.
and Juliet with the topless nudity in high school.
Yeah, but Penny Parsons fast forwarded that part.
Oh, not in my class.
They rewound it and watched it again.
Yeah, no, I remember turning to my teacher in like 9th grade and like, can we be watching this? And she goes like, yeah, what's the problem? I'm like, okay. Like I was a weird one for calling out the fact that we were watching topless nudity in high school.
Anyway, Little Shop of Horrors, it's a B movie, but as a musical. So if you like, movies like The Blob and stuff like that from, the earlier era, if you like the charm of some of those, it's a musical that's trying to play off of that charm and framing it, in song with a bunch of 80s comedians that you probably enjoy. It's got a nice tight 94-minute runtime. So it unlike In the Heights, is a very focused story that gets in and gets out and leaves you a couple catchy tunes along the way. And yeah, I enjoyed it the one time I've seen it quite a bit, and I look forward to watching it again someday. My number 10.
Nice. My number 10 is from 1979, and it is kind of a guilty pleasure of mine. It's the movie Hair.
And by number 10, you mean number 9?
By number 10, I mean number 9. It's Hair. Hair is very much of its time. It's kind of an oddity now watching it, but I still really like it, and I think it has great music. And again, it's exuberant. But it's kind of it's about hippies and the Vietnam War, and the central title is about they all have to cut their hair when they go to sign up or get drafted or whatever. But it's just like kind of it's a very hippie movie. Like The Age of Aquarius is from that movie. There's a song called Hair. I think it's a really fun, just kind of weird movie that has it kind of like in the same way Cabaret like dips into drama as well, like serious socio-political issues, and a love story. And I really like Hair, but I definitely think of it as a guilty pleasure.
My number 9 is 1971's Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory with Gene Wilder. And I went back and forth on this. Is this a musical or not? And I think it is a movie musical because it definitely has songs in it. And though some of the songs seem like Willy Wonka would just be singing these because he's a showman, there's also like the grandpa and the kids singing about Golden Ticket at the beginning, and no one's running around the street singing about Golden Tickets. Like that is definitely a musical moment. And yeah, this is a childhood favorite of mine. Gene Wilder is obviously great as the Willy Wonka character, but his factory is awesome. Like, what kid doesn't want to go to a magical candy factory and just experience all of that? Meet Oompa Loompas, swim in a river of chocolate, and obviously it turns out great for all the kids. So it's the best place to bring a child.
It didn't occur to me to include that on the list. I didn't register that it was a musical, but you're right. There was singing. In
yeah, and I don't think most people consider that a musical first, but I think it definitely fits the criteria.
I think you're right.
Yeah. And it was one of those movies where every time it was on TV, I got super excited to like watch it, knowing that Willy Wonka was on.
Nice.
I read the book, and the only thing I remember from the book is that there's a candy they left out from the movie, and it was like candies that look round, and they're candies that had eyes, and they would look around.
Oh,
and so that was the pun. That they don't look like circular round. Anyways,
they look
that
around.
just always stood out to me.
Do they have schnozberries in the book?
I don't remember.
Okay.
I don't remember either. I think I read it a couple times, but it was a long time ago. So my number 9 is from 1983. It's Monty Python's The Meaning of Life, which a couple of Monty Python movies have musical elements to them, but The Meaning of Life is really just a sketch movie, a movie that consists of different sketches, and each sketch has a song attached to it. Like at some point, they're going to burst out into a musical number in each sketch, and it's great. If you like Monty Python, I feel like it's lesser talked about as far as their movies go. Maybe because it has less of a overarching theme compared to Life of Brian, or certainly Holy Grail does. But I enjoy it quite a bit, and has several memorable songs in it, and it's Monty Python. What is there not to like? My number 9.
I considered this one. I did not include it just because it's more sketch. It's not like telling a through story.
Well, I mean, it's talking about the meaning of life, so there's a theme. The characters don't carry over, if that's what you mean.
It's thematically connected, but you're not going from point A. But I mean, it definitely has musical elements, and I completely understand why you include this on your list.
Sure.
Nice. My number 8 is from 1936. It is Swing Time. This is a Fred Astaire, Ginger Rogers film, and it's so good. It's just incredibly charming. I'm blown away by how talented these two dancers are. Yeah, they're amazing. And there's a lot of like magical realism in it. They have a lot of fun with it. Yeah, this movie is just really fun to watch, and yeah, I like it a lot.
I love in Swing Time where you've got Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers doing like a ballroom dance, and they keep dancing outside the lens of the camera, so the camera has like swing back and forth to follow them. It's great.
Yeah.
Isn't this also the movie where Fred Astaire does blackface though?
You know,
doesn't he?
I don't have a comment on that.
No, it's, I mean,
I don't know if he does black. I don't remember, honestly. Does he?
I think, yes. I think it's something where it's not, it's blackface. It's misguided blackface, as in he's doing a tribute to Mr. Bojangles, an African-American dancer. But part of his tribute is to darken his skin. So it's not, it's still wrong, but it's in the sense of like, you just shouldn't do blackface. Not that he was trying to make fun of African-American people.
Gotcha. Yes.
Yeah.
Now I remember that scene.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. He does a tribute to Bojangles of Harlem.
And unfortunately, it's a great dance scene. And it gets overshadowed by the fact that he had to darken his skin for that scene, or he chose to.
Yeah.
Well, my number 8 is the previously mentioned Les Parapluies de Cherbourg, or The Umbrellas of Cherbourg. Because, Zach, I don't think you mentioned that this movie is completely in French also.
I didn't.
No. Yep. So
I didn't want to scare away James.
I think if James has not seen it, which he may have seen it already, because I know he's
seen it for this episode. You can tell by how silent he is right now.
Correct. But I mean, Zach, you hit everything on the head with this movie. It's right. It's sung the entire way through. The colors are great. The wallpapers in this movie, like, I never watch a movie for wallpaper, but The Umbrellas of Cherbourg has incredible wallpaper because it's like pink and gold and purple, and it's It's great. So yeah, this is a movie that it's a list movie. It surprised me, and it was a great watch.
My number 8 is from 2002. It's Chicago, which is a Best Picture Academy Award winner that I enjoy. I like the energy of this movie a lot. Like, it's just a very fast-paced, flashy movie, both in kind of the editing style. I mean, it's kind of shot like a stage play, which is weird because I don't typically love that presentation. But the way Rob Marshall does it in Chicago, for some reason, I can forgive some of the like more stagey elements of the movie. And I also love the performances, and yeah, I just, Chicago worked for me the first time I saw it, and it's been a while since I've seen it, but my memory is pretty positive on it. My number 8.
I didn't like Chicago.
Me neither. I didn't care for it. And a part of it was the stage play presentation.
Interesting.
It seemed like if you're going to make a movie about a musical, make it a movie. Like, use that. You have the opportunity to build sets and really expand the world. And instead, it felt like I was watching a stylized filmed version of the Broadway musical.
I mean,
Okay.
You can't help but feel like it's definitely like a filmed stage play to some extent, but I felt like it does a better job of towing that line than something like Hamilton on Disney Plus, you know what I mean? Where it's like
a literal,
very obviously just a camera on stage,
yeah,
with what they do on stage type of thing. Like, there's still things in Chicago that you are not going to do on stage in front of an audience.
Mm-hmm.
It's somewhere between what you would do in a film that does not have those elements and the actual stage play. They put something together in the middle. That's not really a defense, but that's maybe why it worked for me.
But I'm glad it worked for you.
My number 7 is Cabaret from 1972. That's a Bob Fosse film. Kyle already mentioned it. I really, this movie had a big impact on me the first time I watched it, because there's all these lighthearted moments and you feel like, okay, this movie is one thing, and then things get real serious because you realize this movie is a slow drip of Nazism.
Uh-huh.
And it kind of creeps up on you, and then you're like, oh, there's real stakes and darkness here. You know what I mean? It's not all just fun and games at the cabaret. And that kind of was a gut punch the first time I watched it. And I think it's great. And there's a lot of memorable songs from this film. So Cabaret, my number 7.
My number 7 is a 2019 film, and this is Rocket Man, starring Taron Egerton. And this is you call this a jukebox musical biopic about the life of Elton John. But what this movie does that's so clever is it uses Elton John's songs to inform either the story or the emotional state he was at some point in his life. So, for example, they'll use like Tiny Dancer, I think, when he's a kid singing about being alone, and it kind of breaks down to this musical moment where he's singing to the camera and people are dancing around him. And I just thought it was such a clever way of trying to incorporate the music of the artist into the life of the artist and really have that music tell their story. Instead of just showing like them figuring out how to write a song or them performing it. You know, the big comparison is Bohemian Rhapsody. Like, that is a pretty straightforward biopic. And you have just like, here's a performance, here's them figuring out how to write a song, where you then switch over to Rocket Man, which I'm pretty sure the editor of Bohemian Rhapsody is like the director of Rocket Man. So there's definitely a tie between there. And in Rocket Man, you have like, we have the music, we have the life story, but they inform each other and they're blended so well. And they have that really heightened musical presentation to them.
So the editor of Bohemian Rhapsody is the director of Rocketman.
There's a connection between the two because I'm pretty sure, you can correct me, but like Bryan Singer is the credited director of Bohemian Rhapsody.
Right.
But he was fired before the picture was finished.
Mm-hmm.
And the picture was basically directed and put together by the editor when it was completed. So I read one reason why Bohemian Rhapsody won Best Editing was because in the editing world, all his contemporaries knew that this guy actually made this picture because Bryan Singer was fired. So it was sort of like you're not the credited director, but we're gonna award you for working so hard on this movie. But there's definitely a connection between Dexter Fletcher and those two movies. Let me look. Okay, so he directed Rocketman, and he was the. Oh, maybe I'm wrong. I could be wrong. He was a producer on Bohemian Rhapsody.
Okay, that sounds better because the editing of Bohemian Rhapsody was so bad.
Oh, no, I agree. Like, it shouldn't have won Best Editing, but the reason it did win Best Editing, or one of the reasons it won, was because the editor was essentially the de facto director after Singer left.
Yeah. I saw a YouTube video of like one scene from Bohemian Rhapsody that is like when it's the perfect scene to explain to people what editing actually is, because it's the worst example of editing.
Is it like an outdoor cafe scene?
Yes.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah. Anyway, my number, whatever number we're on, 7, 8.
7.
My number 7, Rocketman. If you haven't seen it and you didn't like Bohemian Rhapsody, you'll like Rocketman.
Rocketman did not make my list, but it's definitely on my honorable mentions. I enjoy that movie for sure. Probably because they didn't take the Bohemian Rhapsody route. Like they're like you said, they're using the music of the artist, but it's not in a context of, okay, I'm sitting down to write this song.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, and the way they use Crocodile Rock is super interesting because it's just, I don't associate that song with the context that they used it in. But it totally works in the context in which they use it.
Is that a pool scene too, Crocodile Rock?
No, it's in a bar and he sings it on a bet.
That's right, yeah.
Yep.
I also love that Taron Egerton sung all those songs. Like, that is him singing. And he's trying to, it's partially him doing a Elton John impression, but it's also him just like singing in his own way. So he's not just trying to completely mimic, where in Bohemian Rhapsody, you've got the guy who won, who was lip syncing. Like, he won Best Actor for lip syncing.
Right. My number 7, Zach knows me too well. It's from 1964, and it's The Umbrellas of Cherbourg, which I watched this week for this episode. Absolutely, exactly as he laid it out. I enjoyed this. I thought the constant singing would annoy me. For some reason, I didn't make the calculation that it would be singing in French. And so I think it didn't annoy me because I wasn't really listening to every word they were saying anyway, because I was reading it. So it was kind of like somebody was singing gibberish while I read what they were singing about. And so it kind of just mixed with the music, the music was great. And it was continuous, never stopped through the whole movie.
Yeah.
So I never once bothered me. I will say that the story, I think, is kind of underwhelming, and some of the performances, actually pretty much all the performances are like they're not super dramatic or particularly well built, or I never got emotional about anything that was happening on the screen. But the presentation is absolutely unique, I would say. Like, somebody had a vision and went all in, and it was either going to work or it wasn't. And it worked for me, for sure, visually. I don't know. Has it been a while since you guys have seen it?
It's been a couple of years.
5 years, maybe?
The first scene I think I had seen in like edited packages of like the umbrellas walking from top down during a rainstorm, and like the umbrellas are all these different colors. And I was like, oh yeah, I've seen this before. And then all I could think about was how horrible the rain machine was. Because the rain is not dropping in a consistent way. It's basically like dropping, like it's like somebody put 4 hoses, and so there's like a high concentration of rain and like 4 shots in the screen. And so right at the beginning I was like, this is a classic. They can't even get the rain machine right. And then the movie very quickly sold me with all the colors and everything else that the movie has going for it. It's if you are into movies as a visual medium, I think it's a must watch because of the design of the movie and just how much they go in on it. Like every set is painted a very specific color, and it's not a boring color. It's always like, how can we make this visually interesting, even though what's going on is kind of by the numbers somewhat.
Yeah.
I also thought it was interesting, like the whole is it spoiler to say what happens to the lady mid-movie?
I'm pretty sure it's in the plot synopsis on Letterboxd.
Sure. Let's just say the lady has an issue mid-movie that, like, what I don't think was played much here in the United States around that time. I don't know, mid-60s, maybe they were making movies about that, but I think it was still kind of like a shameful thing to happen to a lady that they weren't really putting in the movies much.
Yeah.
And in this one, there is some of that attached to it, but really it kind of moved on. And people are not ashamed. And I thought that was kind of refreshing.
No, it's more of her trying to figure out how does she deal with the situation,
right?
Moving forward,
and less like I'm going to be an outcast,
Yeah.
Which I think is how it's framed here in the United States more often than not. Even today, it's like we don't get storylines about that today because there's still a stigma attached to it in film. I think in TV it's different. In TV, it seems to happen not often, but when it makes sense for a story. But anyway, I enjoyed it. I'm glad I watched it. My number 7.
James, I think it'll be fun for you to rewatch La La Land now that you've seen Umbrellas, because Umbrellas of Cherbourg was a major influence of that movie, and there are a ton of references to it in the film.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen La La Land a bunch, and so I'm sure I'll get more out of it when I watch it again, but I could just, while I was watching The Umbrellas, it was just reminding me of La La Land, which probably helped it quite a bit.
Yeah, I bet. Okay, my number 6 is a movie that I watched for this show, not for this show, for Cinereelists. It is The Last 5 Years from 2014. This is an Anna Kendrick musical. And I just, for whatever reason, loved this movie. I thought The Last 5 Years was awesome. It's got a clever conceit. It's telling about this relationship, right? An author and an actress. And it tells their relationship from start to finish and from finish to start. And those two timelines are interwoven with each other. And then they meet in the middle. So like it'll cut between the end of the relationship and the start of the relationship. And that's how the movie starts. And it goes along those timelines until it gets to the middle, right in the middle of the relationship where they meet up. And then it'll end with the end of their relationship and the start of their relationship. And I thought it was so well done. And the music is so beautiful. I was totally into it. I couldn't have been happier with this movie. So it's made my list. The Last 5 Years. Number 6.
I've definitely heard of this. You're kind of how to describe that meeting in the middle. Sounds familiar.
Yeah. If you liked Memento and then wanted something totally different, The Last 5 Years.
Memento the musical is what I really need.
Yeah.
But it's Anna Kendrick, and I forget who the actor is that's opposite her.
Jeremy Jordan?
He's somebody interesting too. I don't know. Was that who it was? Jeremy Jordan?
Yeah,
that name
Jeremy
doesn't
Jordan.
ring a bell.
You may know him as the Flash.
From Justice
on
League?
TV?
No, he's not the Flash. I don't know who he
Okay.
is.
Yeah. I recommend it, Kyle. If you haven't seen it, you should see it.
Okay,
It's a good
well,
one.
since both of you guys have seen it, you both like it, I'll add it to the list.
Yeah.
And
It's an interesting Anna Kendrick movie too, because
Yeah.
she's just, it's not typical of her, I would say.
yeah, I'm definitely mixed on Anna Kendrick. Sometimes I really enjoy what she's doing. Other times I'm like, but I'm always down for checking out an interesting Anna Kendrick movie. I will say that all of mine are like classics to me. I didn't watch anything new for this list. So these are movies that are ingrained in my enjoyment.
Same for me.
Yeah.
The only
Mine
movie
am-
I watched new was the last one I talked about. Everything else is old school.
Well, you may sound like you're just like mainlining
did.
musicals.
I did. I just didn't like those other ones.
Okay. I'm sure we'll hear about those another day then, another episode. My number 6 is from 1939. This is The Wizard of Oz. This is a classic. I probably don't need to tell you what The Wizard of Oz is about.
You don't.
No, but it's got some pretty great songs in it. Definitely more of the songs are in the beginning towards the end. But Somewhere Over the Rainbow, that's a classic. That song is awesome. It still works whenever you kind of hear those opening notes and that first phrase of Somewhere Over the Rainbow. I'm hooked. I just want to hear the whole song. So Judy Garland had an amazing voice, and it was definitely on display in Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
Nice. My number 6 is from 1965. It's another movie that we probably don't have to go too deep in. It's The Sound of Music. And what a great musical. Growing up with 3 sisters, saw my fair share of The Sound of Music, amongst other movies that I'm sure were seen in other households, but maybe not watched over and over and over again. Sound of Music was one of those movies that my sisters watched over and over and over again. And I'm better for it, I think. I think it's a movie that if you're going to have to watch one over and over and over, it might as well be one like The Sound of Music. Very well made. Production, classic Hollywood production. Yeah, I enjoy it quite a bit.
Quite a bit refers to a significant amount.
Okay, my number 5. We're getting into movies that I just really, really like.
Mhm.
Jesus Christ Superstar from 1973. This is a musical. It's based on a stage play about the life of Jesus. It's very heretical. I wouldn't say it's like an accurate movie into the real life of Jesus, but it touches on a lot of the same themes, and it's fascinating to watch. And the songs are so catchy. They're sung in like this very 70s operatic kind of way, like where they're just like, they are belting to the world.
Mhm.
It's like emo opera almost. And it's so raggedy. And this movie does this crazy thing where it's set in turn of the millennium Palestine, 2000 years ago. But then they'll just kind of randomly have tanks like chasing a character, or like there's all these anachronisms from like the 70s, like just placed back 2000 years for visual effect. And it's very creative. It's super interesting. All of the actors are super compelling. I think the guy who plays Herod is such a weirdo. It's perfect. I just thoroughly enjoy this movie. And I think the songs are so likable and catchy. Yeah, I'm really into Jesus Christ Superstar. I think it's a lot of fun.
Do you remember the Mr. Show sketch Jeepers Creepers Semi-Star?
I don't know.
You okay? When we're done with this, Google, YouTube it. It's like 7 minutes long, and it is the Mr. Show parody of Jesus Christ Superstar with Jack Black in the main lead.
Oh, that's awesome.
You're gonna love it. You're gonna love it.
Okay.
Cool. Zach, who's the director of Jesus Christ Superstar?
Norman Jewison, who is one of my favorite directors.
You know, funny you should say that because he directed my number 5. It's not Jesus Christ Superstar. It is Fiddler on the Roof. Now, I watched this movie very recently, like in the last couple of years, and all I really knew about this movie before then was If I Were a Rich Man, because we played that in middle school band. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I just remember our band director, Mr. Nergi, like singing it and doing his dancing up on the podium. So I figured I should finally watch it. And this movie's great. The songs are... Are you watching it right now?
No, I'm not.
Okay. I see. Like, what are you laughing about? The songs in Fiddler are amazing. It's got If I Were a Rich Man, you got Matchmaker, it's got a great wedding scene. But I also love every time the what's the main character's name?
Tevye.
Tevye, thank you.
White Elijah 4.
that was unearned. Whenever Tevye has this crisis of faith and he's talking to God, he like the camera like zooms out for him, like it carries him a mile away from wherever the scene is, and he's sort of like talking to this guy very removed from whatever event's happening, and then he kind of goes through his crisis of faith and he's like zoomed back into whatever the scene is, and it's just it's such a clever way of telling the story and being able to use filmmaking. Right, we're not just filming a stage play, like we are outside, we are making a movie, so how can we use all the space available to us? I had such a good time watching Fiddler on the Roof.
Can I say Fiddler on the Roof is a top 100 film for me? I love Fiddler on the Roof. It's so great. And for this list, I just completely forgot it existed. It absolutely would be on this list. So officially I'm going to dump Hair and throw Fiddler on the list because it has to be on there.
It has to be. Wait, you were so hung up on Jesus Christ Superstar, I forgot the other Norman Jewison film.
Yeah, my rule, only one Norman Jewison film per list. I'm ditching that rule for right now.
Yeah, I mean, longtime listeners know that's an ingrained tenet of this movie or this little podcast.
Exactly, yeah.
I also enjoy Fiddler on the Roof, and it's in my honorable mentions. I watched it because it's on Zach's top 100, and it was a good watch for sure. My number 5 is from 1980. It is a Robert Altman movie titled Popeye, which is great.
Is this a musical?
Popeye. It's totally a musical.
I don't.
Robin Williams.
Yeah, no, I've seen it. I just don't remember it being a musical. I believe you, obviously.
It's definitely a musical for sure. Starring Robin Williams and Shelley Duvall, amongst others. And I feel like this movie is being reevaluated slowly over time. I think it wasn't fully well received at the time, nor did it, burn a hole in the box office or anything. But I remember watching it as a kid. Released in 1980, so I was 3. I probably came to it like 84 or 85 when they played it on HBO or maybe Sunday night movie on some broadcast channel. I don't remember, but I remember having this on taped VHS and just loving it and watching it over and over. And it wasn't until later on in life when I was like, oh, people don't like this movie. I love it. Why don't people like this? I love it. So I revisited it maybe within the last 5 or 6 years after coming to terms with the fact that most people don't like it. And I was like, I don't get it. I still love it. I think it's great. Super fun movie. Very weird and not fully what you'd expect from the adaptation of a comic strip, a newspaper comic strip. I think it's an interesting take. And I remember later watching other Robert Altman movies and then understanding why in Popeye, like, people talk over each other. Like, there's chaotic scenes where people are, I don't remember them singing on top of each other, but there's definitely family scenes where like Olive Oil and her family are just kind of like acting wacky and talking over each other. And I didn't fully understand that was the style of the filmmaker. I just thought it made sense in the context of the movie. Anyway, Popeye, if you haven't checked it out, I think you should. My number 6. Something.
That was
like
your number 5.
5. My number 5.
I'm definitely going to show Galen Nashville and MASH first before we watch Popeye, just so he can really understand what's going on.
I don't think that's a good idea. Start him on Popeye, and then he'll love at least one Robert Altman movie.
Do you guys want to live check in real quick?
Yeah.
Yes.
I just got a notification. I just sold a Blu-ray Jerry Maguire for $45.
A Blu-ray or 4K?
A 4K.
Wow.
Yeah, and Zach's
For
bringing this up
$45.
because right before we recorded the podcast, somebody offered him $35 and he turned it down.
I said no, and then someone just offered me $45 and bought it. Plus shipping.
Nice.
So
Awesome.
who wants to watch Jerry Maguire that bad?
I mean, at this point, it has to be a collector who just wants every 4K that's out there.
Yeah, he's spending $48.
That's a lot of money for one movie.
Wild. Okay. The next one's going to be the next one's going to be Singing in the Rain. Singing in the Rain. Which I think is a movie James doesn't like, which is crazy.
I don't like it.
But Singing in the Rain is so much fun.
Yeah.
It is a lot of fun. It's from 1952. Obviously a classic. It's got so many different types of set pieces, right? You have the zany ones where he's, like running up and down walls and jumping on couches and stuff like that are like really funny. You have these like, obviously him singing in the rain, like dancing at night on light poles and stuff like that. The plot of the film, it's a Gene Kelly film. The plot of the movie is, and Debbie Reynolds, is moving from silent films to talkies. So in the late 20s, and like what that transition is like for actors of the time. And so you get this like, window into old Hollywood. The songs are so much fun. I mean, Gene Kelly is really a lot of fun on screen. I didn't particularly like American in Paris, but I really liked Singing in the Rain. So
I think this movie unfairly gets remembered just for the singing in the rain and the dancing around light posts, which is a part of it. But you're right. There are some really zany and creative pieces in this movie. Do you guys want a live check-in?
Yes.
yeah.
I just bought Jerry Maguire on 4K for $45.
That would be amazing.
All right. No.
I think what I told is I was selling the only copy on eBay.
So that's probably,
That helps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You didn't want my $35 offer, so I was like, fine. He's like, he's not gonna be hardball. My number 4 is a 1975 movie called Tommy. And this is a movie based not on a musical, but actually on a album. In 1969, The Who released you call it a rock opera called Tommy. And it's about a boy who has a traumatic event as a young kid. He becomes deaf, blind, and dumb, as in he cannot speak, and becomes a pinball wizard, even though he loses all these senses, and eventually becomes this sort of cult figure prophet. And the entire story is told through songs, sort of through about the life and the journey of Tommy. And the movie adaptation is awesome because they bring in different artists to sing each song. So obviously listen to the Who album and it's the Who performing every single song, but you see the movie and you've got Elton John who comes in as a pinball wizard. You have Tina Turner comes in as the Acid Queen. Even Jack Nicholson is in this. He plays. I'm pretty sure he plays a therapist. And it's just a lot of fun seeing all these different, almost cameos playing these different roles in the movie. It's also a weird movie. It's directed by Ken Russell. There's a scene at one point where there are baked beans flying out of a television set, just filling a room. And a lot of times people who don't like this movie points to the baked beans scene because it's just so weird. But I really like Tommy. The album is a classic. It's great. And the movie is a lot of fun.
Nice.
Never seen it. Should I?
I mean, what do you think about The Who?
They're like a good classic rock band. I wouldn't just listen to them at random, but I don't have a problem with them.
Okay. I think you should, because you get Who songs, but it's being performed, like I said, by all this variety of actors and singers.
Okay. Do you think I'd enjoy it as far as what you know of what I enjoy about musicals?
Yeah, I think so, because each song is different enough that you would be, if you don't care for one song, 2-3 minutes later it's over and we're on to the next one, and they each have kind of their own little style anyway. And
it's not hokey like Singing in the Rain.
No, I mean some of the performances are hokey, but it's not a filmed stage presentation like Singing in the Rain.
Sure,
like it's definitely a movie.
My number 4 is from 1964. There's a lot of 60s musicals in my list.
Yeah, it's a big decade for musicals.
Good year for musicals, evidently. This one is Mary Poppins, another movie that was frequently watched in my household. Next to The Sound of Music, this one is probably in competition for most watched musical, I would guess. And I enjoy Mary Poppins. I think it's a great kids movie, great musical, super creative, mixed media movie in a time when that wasn't done much here in the States. And all the performances are charming, and the dance numbers, and I think there's something here for girls and boys, and I like it quite a bit. Mary Poppins, my number 4.
Yeah, I mean, what can you say bad about Mary Poppins? It's great.
Absolutely nothing.
It's possibly perfect.
Yeah, it's possibly perfect.
Mary Poppins.
Okay,
easily the best Mary Poppins movie.
Yeah, I'll give you that for sure.
I agree.
Okay, my number 3 is Fame from 1980. Which is a movie that I weirdly just love.
For sure. I don't understand this at all.
I don't know if other people are as into Fame as I am, but I think Fame is fantastic. It's an Alan Parker film. It's got an ensemble cast, and it basically tells the story of all these different people that get accepted into a performing arts school. I don't know if it's Juilliard or something else, but so like they all have different, musical abilities or dance or, that kind of thing. And it just has so much energy to it, from the start where they're dancing in the street. This is the 1980s one that I'm in love with. It's not the remake from
with Daniel Day-Lewis,
2009.
Yeah.
But this movie, I care about all of these characters so much. I feel like the actors really produce a lot of empathy within me. And then there's some pretty like hard, serious scenes. And so like this movie does what a really good stage play does, in that it performs a magic trick on you, right? You think you're there just to be entertained, and all of a sudden you're seeing like really dramatic things happening and you're totally invested. And a lot of the songs are really great. The performances are across the board awesome. I'm a big fan of Fame. So my number 3.
Great. I've never seen either version of Fame.
Check it out. I'll watch it with you.
All right.
Get ready for a very 80s movie. I mean, very
What's wrong with the
80s. It's nothing wrong with it. It's just some things work no matter what time, and that movie is going to feel like an 80s movie. That's for sure.
Let me counter that with, when I think of like, oh, that's a very 80s movie, I'm thinking of like Dirty Dancing. This is not Dirty Dancing. This is
Dirty
much more of a
Dancing.
No. This is a 70s musical. This is not an 80s musical.
Well, it says 1980.
Came out in 1980
Yeah.
in May. This is a 70s musical. It's not Dirty Dancing. Dirty Dancing is hokey.
So it's Hairspray then.
Yeah. It's definitely not Hairspray, but yeah.
You watch it, Kyle. Decide for yourself if it feels more 80s or if it feels more 70s.
Or so, okay. I'll judge by the size of the hair and the mustaches.
I'm willing to bet
It's the only
it'll
way.
be 80s. I bet you could watch the trailer and tell me what it's going to feel like.
That would be a fun game. Like, just watch a trailer to a movie you've never seen before and have an instant reaction. Like,
Oh, yeah.
what is this
Right.
movie going to be about? Yeah. My number 3 is a musical from 1975, and this is the Rocky Horror Picture Show. This is starring Tim Curry, Susan Sarandon, Barry Bostwick, and a bunch of other people. And this is, I guess you call this like a rock and roll musical. And it is strange, but I like it. It's a quick over. I'm sure people have seen it, but Susan Sarandon and Barry Bostwick are a newly married couple, or maybe they're not married. I think they might even be engaged. And they are driving late one night, and their car breaks down, and they happen upon this strange mansion full of people, cross-dressers and clones, and all these weirdos. And the mansion is run by Tim Curry, who plays Dr. Frankenfurter. And I was talking earlier about the MC from Cabaret and how, like, when someone can command a performance and command a screen, I am enthralled. And I'm enthralled by Tim Curry's performance in Rocky Horror Picture Show. Like, every time he is on screen, he draws all the attention right to him. His songs are great. His performances are great. It is one of my favorite Tim Curry performances, up there with Clue and the Mater D from Home Alone 2.
Yeah. Plus Meatloaf is great in that.
Yeah, right. Meatloaf he's got one scene, one song. He's great in it. Have you guys ever done a Rocky Horror Picture Show live experience?
Mm-hmm.
You've never done
I
it,
have.
James? Oh, it's... What are your thoughts, Rocky Horror, James? You're very quiet over there. I don't know if it's because you hate it or because it's coming up for you.
No, I definitely don't hate it. It's just a weird movie I saw once.
Okay.
So I've never... I had a debate coach in high school who really loved Rocky Horror and like had been to 50 plus showings of it, and was like, it was weird when I was in high school. Like, she had Rocky Horror Picture posters like all over her classroom. And I saw it and was like, okay, yeah, it's weird.
It's
that movie does have a legacy on this podcast. I think Zach and I debated for far too long about whether people actually stood on the stage and reenacted it at those events, right? And then we went so far as to contact theater groups that did this and ask them, take a poll and ask them if they actually reenacted it in front of an audience or whether they just did interactive things from the audience.
Yeah.
And,
so let me fill that in, Kyle, before you react.
Okay, yeah.
Let me fill that in a little bit.
Sure.
We had an argument. I had been to a midnight showing of Rocky Horror, and James hadn't. And my side was that they did reenact the film as it's going on in front, and that was a normal, common thing that happens nationwide. And he said, no, that's not a common thing. Maybe it happened at your showing, but if it is a thing, it's a relatively recent thing. And I was like, those are the two sides of the argument. Kyle, which side do you weigh in on? We argued about this for 2.5 hours.
Yeah. So I've done the live experience twice. The first time was at my college, and it was in like a cafeteria, and it was projected on a big drop down screen. So there was the back and forth, but there was no one acting it out. But then I saw it at the Orpheum, Zach, here in Madison, which has a stage. And there were definitely costumed people on stage acting out the movie as it was playing. And my understanding is that is the norm, is that there will be people on stage in costume acting out the entire movie while you're watching it.
There's really not 20 seconds that go by. There's not something.
It's every moment of dead space is filled by someone yelling something.
Yeah.
Like I think if the live experience was your first time seeing the movie, you'd find it annoying because you don't know what's going on, because like every time someone's not talking or singing, someone in the audience is shouting something back. But once you've seen it at least once or twice, then you could really enjoy that back and forth between the movie and the audience.
I think that's where we landed in the argument, was that I could certainly find instances where people weren't on a stage reenacting it, but for the most part, the people we contacted do act out certain moments on the stage.
I would say the majority of midnight showings, people are acting it out.
Yeah.
I mean,
repetitive scheduled midnight showings. They have a bigger plan than just from the stands yelling things. My number 3 is from 1939. Don't have much to say about this because we've talked about it to death over the years. The Wizard of Oz. Great movie, great musical, super interesting and historically interesting as far as like the history of movies. And it's great. My number 3.
Nice. My number 2 is La La Land from 2016. Damien Chazelle, starring Ryan Gosling, Emma Stone, and it's fantastic. It is just a joy to watch. It is a wonderful, lovely movie. It gets only better with time, and it's fantastic. And it might get mentioned again, who knows? But I really like La La Land.
My number 2 is also previously mentioned, and this is Mary Poppins from 1964. And this is, I love this movie. If I was to guess the movie I've seen the most in my life, it's probably Mary Poppins, because I was watching it all the time as a kid. We recorded it off of Disney Channel and it was on repeat. I had VHSs of the performances. I love it. I love the songs. I always liked the Step in Time. I would like recreate as a little kid on my couch, running around our house, jumping on things, being like I was the chimney sweeps. Zach, we were talking about Spaceballs and Princess Vesma and the effect she had on me. I'm pretty sure Mary Poppins had that similar effect on me. So it is it's a big movie for me. It's actually of my number 1 and 2. I like Mary Poppins more, but my number 1 is a better musical. So that's why it can be my number 1.
My number 2 is from 1971, and it's Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
All right.
Which I absolutely think musical first when I think of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. It's probably because I played Willy Wonka in 4th grade, in the 4th grade stage production, and had to learn songs and sing. And so I think of it as a musical for sure. 100%.
And when will you be recording one of these performances and sharing on Instagram for all of us?
Well, that was 30 years ago, so the time has passed. Sorry. More than 30 years ago at this point. I mean, right at the beginning, it's, the kid and his uncle or his grandfather singing in their house. And every scene has a song in it practically. Yeah. So definitely musical and super whimsical and fun and colorful, and does not feel like a stage play. Feels like a movie that happens to have singing in it, but there's like a decent mix of like singing and talking. It's like they use the talking to set something up, and then they use the singing to make it more fun than it probably is. So my number 2.
Cool. And my number 1 is Moulin Rouge from 2001. It is a Baz Luhrmann film. Also director I like a lot. Starring Nicole Kidman, Ewan McGregor, John Leguizamo. And Yeah, Moulin Rouge is it's just a unique film, right? It's got a ton of music in it. They're all repurposed pop songs. So I don't think there's any unique songs to the film. No, that I take that back. I think there are. And there's a lot of remix songs too, where they'll do like a song montage or that kind of thing. But this is just a totally unique movie world, right? This is something that could only exist like this in the movies, right? It takes full advantage of the fact that this is a artificial filmed world, and it really plays around with the cinematic qualities of it. I think the music is great. My favorite standout song is Roxanne. They sing Roxanne while like performing like a tango or whatever, and it's intercut with like a pivotal plot moment in the main couple's love story. So all the music is thematically tied to what's happening in the story. I like this second half of this film a lot more than the first half, but overall I just think the movie is just a singular vision come to life. I really liked it. It might be a little too manic for some people, but I really enjoyed Moulin Rouge. That's why it's my number one.
I don't like that movie.
Why?
So I saw it 20 years ago, and it was in college, and I remember being annoyed by the jukebox aspect of it. That's just other songs. I think for me, it was hearing Nirvana sung in a musical style was like super sacrilegious. And I don't know if I care for Baz Luhrmann as a director. Like, he's a very unique director. Like what else? I know he did Romeo and Juliet. Give me some more Baz Luhrmann movies.
Gatsby.
He did Gatsby.
Yeah, I never saw that one.
So you've only seen Romeo and Juliet and Moulin Rouge.
Okay, that's only two. All right, well.
No, he did another dancing one. It's part of his trilogy. What's it called?
Those are the ones I know off the top of my head.
He did Australia, Strictly Ballroom.
Okay, no. Well, okay, based on Moulin Rouge, I don't care for Baz Luhrmann as a director.
Sure.
So I don't know. I don't know if I should give it a second chance or if it was just...
You didn't like Romeo and Juliet?
I don't know if I have an opinion on Romeo and Juliet. It was, again, I saw that so long ago.
How can you not have an opinion on Romeo and Juliet? I mean, that movie is made for people to have opinions on it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think part of it, again, this was a movie that I was in, I think I was either middle school or high school when Romeo and Juliet came out. And Leonardo DiCaprio was like the hot thing. He was just coming off of Titanic. And I think part of my, being a ninth grade boy was cynicism played into that.
Sure. You weren't.
Romeo and Juliet is my number 34.
Yeah.
Film.
You weren't the film lover you are today. You didn't watch movies to have opinions on them back then.
No. But if I was to give a Baz Luhrmann movie a second chance, I'd rather watch Romeo and Juliet than Moulin Rouge. Like Moulin Rouge, I definitely have an opinion about, and I definitely did not like that movie.
I think that's fair, and I think you would see things in Romeo and Juliet that you didn't see the first time around. I'm not saying you'll like those things, but it'll be at least interesting to watch it 20 years later and be like, oh, there's a lot more to this than, my foggy memory had reserved for it.
All right. Romeo and Juliet, you're on the list, but Moulin Rouge, you're dead to me. Well, let's talk about my number one. And this is by far my favorite musical of all time. And not just movie-wise, but actual musical of all time. And this is West Side Story from 1961. It's starring Natalie Wood and Richard Beymer, as well as Rita Moreno. But it's really all about the songs. And this is composed by Leonard Bernstein, who was a great composer and conductor, as well as lyrics by Stephen Sondheim. And speaking of Romeo and Juliet, West Side Story is a modern telling of Romeo and Juliet, where you have Tony, who lives in New York City. He kind of comes from an Italian family, and he meets and falls in love with Maria. who comes from a Puerto Rican family who are immigrants, and the Romeo and Juliet star-crossed lovers aspect of all that, told through gangs that sing and dance and have a lot of flair. And it's great. The music's great. The dancing is iconic. I love the large cast ensemble songs they do, but even then the solos and the duets are amazing. Yeah, I don't really know what else to say besides this movie is incredible, and I love both the movie and the musical.
Nice.
Yeah. My favorite thing about West Side Story is the Mountain Dew commercial that had them singing
Tonight.
Maria or Tonight. Yeah. I loved that Mountain Dew commercial.
It's a classic. Yeah.
Yeah.
James, you like punk music.
Sure.
Have you ever heard of Punk Side Story?
No, I've never heard of that.
In the 90s, this punk band called Schlong recorded the entire musical of West Side Story in like a gritty 90s punk style. And it's so much fun to listen to because like they're doing their best, but you can also tell like it was just like 8 of them in a studio one night cranking this thing out.
Sure.
Yeah.
Interesting. Are you, since you're such a big fan of West Side Story, what's your temperature on the Spielberg West Side Story that is going to be released this year?
I am prepared to be disappointed just because West Side Story is a top 50 movie for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I need to temper my expectations. But I'm curious to see if Spielberg can do anything interesting direction-wise with it.
Mm-hmm.
Like you watch.
Oh, I'm just interested in seeing him do a musical.
Right,
Like,
he's never done a musical before.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like 1960 West Side Story is definitely shot on a studio lot.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really curious to see, you know, if
Yeah.
Spielberg can kind of expand that out and give it more of a In the Heights gave me some West Side Story vibes at times.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. My number one, no surprise, La La Land. Love that movie. I think I've said it about 1 billion times on this podcast, so I don't have much to go into. I rewatched it this time on 4K after watching Umbrellas of Cherbourg, and it's great. It's definitely an awesome 4K if you want to watch La La Land again in the best format possible. I think it's definitely the 4K version. But I'm pretty sure, like, I think this is the 6th or 7th time I've seen La La Land, and it was released in 2016. So I'm on like a decent 1+ viewings per year on average for this one. And I would not be shocked if in 17 short episodes from now, when we do our top 500 movies of all time, if this movie will crack my top 10, because there's no reason why it shouldn't at this point. I think I'm pretty attached to it, and it's not going away. And if I can watch a movie once a year on average for 5 years in a row, it's a movie that I can probably watch for the rest of my life and be perfectly fine watching. Now, like movies like Empire Strikes Back are movies that, even though I don't have any great need to watch them every year, I wouldn't not watch them every year. You know what I mean? Like if somebody today said, let's go watch Empire Strikes Back, I'm not tired of Empire Strikes Back. I will absolutely go watch Empire Strikes Back and enjoy every single minute of it. That being said, I'm probably not just going to put it in and watch it like alone, because I've done that 50+ times. And I can think of other things that I'd probably rather see a brand new thing over watching it on my own. Just at random. La La Land isn't there for me in that situation, I'll happily watch it on my own and re-experience it on my own. But I feel like in 10 years, 20 years, it might become one of those movies where I stop watching it just because I've seen it enough, but probably won't feel any different about it. Probably still love it. And that to me is a top 10 material movie. That's why it's my number one musical, on top of just being a great movie. Love it. Every minute of it. Cool.
Nice. Did you guys have the same number one?
No.
No,
Zach?
Moulin Rouge
Moulin
is
Rouge,
my
your number
number
one. That's right. Okay. Yeah. Number two was La La Land for you.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, that was our top 10 musicals. Thank you for listening to this episode 483 of the Cinereelists podcast. We appreciate your listenership. Don't forget, you can always send us an email to heyguys@cinereelists.com, REEL with an S on the end. Send a comment, a question, a list suggestion, a movie suggestion. Send your list of top 10 live action musicals. And maybe there's something we're overlooking. You could also check out the video version of this podcast on YouTube at youtube.com. Search Cinereelists, find the channel, subscribe, watch video versions, particularly the last episode. It's pretty good. Video version is, decently different than just listening to it, for sure. You can support us on Patreon, patreon.com/Cinereelists. Support the podcast, get extra after show audio, leave us an Apple Podcast review, and follow us on social media. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook at Cinereelists, or you can follow me on my personal Twitter or Letterboxd account at YoJRB.
You can follow me on Twitter or Letterboxd at Shaben.
You can find me on Letterboxd at PeterSKB.
Fun episode, guys. I enjoyed it. Next week, we will be talking Luca, the new Pixar movie, on Disney Plus. So if you have Disney Plus, you can give Luca a little pre-watch. Now you'll know in advance what we're talking about next week. We'll see you guys there. Until then, keep it cinereal.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.